Everybody, welcome to No Fear, the podcast that explores the power of courage and fear. I am Pete Pepe, one of the co-founders of 3777, and I have the great pleasure of having the other two co-founders of 3777 right next to me. I have Mr. Iiro Seppänen, and I have Mr. Jeb Corliss. All right, so today is going to be a very, very interesting podcast. We're going to be talking about stage fright. And to get a little bit more detailed, specifically, we're going to be talking about the fear of performing. Now, the three of us have a very extensive background in performing, myself coming from the music world, coming from the magic world, and the base jumping extreme sports world, and Mr. Extreme himself, Jeb, over on the other side. So we all know that with that comes a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of pressure to perform, and especially when you have huge audiences. Jeb's had big audiences, Iiro's had massive audiences with people they're watching, and when all eyes are on you, there tends to be a big fear with that. So I just want to get right into it. I'm going to go right to Iiro. So let's just get a little bit of a background of where you're coming from when you started to perform and how that was affecting you from a fear aspect.
Well, it all dates back to childhood, like most of my stories and most of my fears and tragedies. But it started. I've always wanted to perform. I always have the buzz to I want to be in front of people when the crowds are small. But the moment crowds got bigger, I had a huge stage fright. I couldn't perform on anything on the stage. And when I was younger, I wanted to perform, but I couldn't sing and I couldn't dance. So I thought I had any kind of talent for performing. So obvious reasons I didn't step on a stage for a long time. And I think I was around 11 and 12. My neighbor came and he showed me a very simple magic trick. He just showed a little base and he put a red ball there, put the lid on, and then the ball had vanished. And I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. And my mind started to race and I wanted to learn how he did that magic trick. And that slowly, I just learning the secrets of the trick was really interesting, and I wanted to practice, and then I started to practice and practice more. And I was always in my back of my mind, I also want to perform on a stage. But I always had the fright, I was afraid if people judge me, and if I would go on a stage, if I would fail, how that would feel in being in front of people, and they would laugh at me and they would judge me. And I had all these fears in my head, and that prevented me for a long time for getting on the stage. And then finally, I was practicing enough that I got some more courage through my act, and I was learning the magic trick, and they didn't fail that often anymore. And then finally, I was doing small performances, and I remember, I think it was my third or the fourth performance, I had all the symptoms of fear. My hands were shaking, I was sweaty palms, my mouth was dry, and I would have to go on the stage and talk. There was all the physical symptoms of fear. And they introduced me on the stage, and I just pretended I didn't hear it. I was looking elsewhere. That's not me. And then they introduced me again, and there was a decision that I had to make then. I could just pack up my things, go home, throw away all my magic gear, never look back again, or I could go on the stage and see what happens. And I remember it was 50-50, whichever I'm going to do. And today, I'm really grateful that I decided to take that step and go on the stage, because that opened up a whole door. I perform more and I get more comfortable on it, and it opened up a whole life. It's with that performance, it set up a lifetime. I became a professional magician. I started to tour the world. And most importantly, I'm really grateful that I found my passion. And that passion had kept me in line. All the kids from my age were doing silly things, but I wanted to return home and practice my magic tricks and go on the shows and start earning money. And the combination was that's something that kept me in a line and pushed me forward in life and opened up in amazing adventures. And that's kind of a short version of my story in magic. And there's always, I think there was a pressure of the magic, whether it goes wrong or right. There was a pressure of the audience, how do they react? Do they like me? Do they judge me? And all these questions that I had in my head. But like you said, we've all experienced different type of fears, and we've been on the stage, and your kind of audiences are different. Not necessarily different, but your performances are truly something spectacular that you're literally risking your life to create an emotion in the people who see it, something that they remember for the rest of their lives. And I'm sure that pressure to perform on those different conditions, even if anything is not ideal, I'd like to know, how have you balanced yourself in these situations where thousands of people have come to see you to perform, and on the other hand, you have maybe a bad weather, and how do you balance the pressure of performing to an audience and then keeping you safe at the same time?
Oh God. So I've done a lot of big stunts. I've done 3 massive live stunts in China, all with you. You helped me produce them, and we did the fly through the cave in China. We did the flying dagger where we went between the really narrow cliff, landing on the side of a mountain that was pretty gnarly, and then we did the Great Wall of China. Um, I guess the one that's probably the best to kind of illustrate like the difficulties is the flying dagger. That one turned out to be very challenging, very dangerous, and we got really bad weather, which made it impossible to do the proper training. So usually, whenever I do a big thing like this, I always want to have a lot of lead up days to do a lot of training jumps to get prepared. So you can basically work your way into what you're going to be doing. So when we went there and scouted it, we kind of saw what the cliff was. It was a very low, like 800 and something feet tall. It was 900 feet long. It was like at the top 60 feet wide and at the bottom like 15 feet wide. And then it was also kind of crooked. Like it wasn't exactly straight. So you'd have to like side slip as you went through it. And it was just complicated. And what I thought was, okay, as long as I have 5 days leading up to it, I can jump out of the chopper and fly it high and kind of just go over it and then get a little bit closer and a little bit closer. And through like 5 jumps a day over 5 days, I would know where I could enter and where I could exit and still have enough altitude to then make it to my landing area. And that's why I said yes to it. Because I'm like, hey, if I can have 5 days leading into this, and then I have to have like 2 or 3 days of weather window just in case the weather's bad, because obviously this is going to be very weather dependent. And I was given an assurance that I would have the helicopter 5 days before and that I could take as many practice jumps as I needed. And that if for some reason the weather was bad on the day, we could push it another day. And I had to have a couple days because that's just how weather works.
Yeah.
So, I have this weird psychological thing where when I say I'm going to do something, that's where the real pressure comes from. Because if I tell someone I'm going to do something, it's really important for me to do what I say I'm going to do. And so, what's interesting about Flying Dagger is a lot of the pressure came from that more than anything else. Because it was so dangerous that the sponsors, which were Red Bull at the time, Red Bull China, they were fine with me not doing it, and everyone was fine with me not doing it because it scared everyone. Like it was a very scary thing. But for me, it was really important that I did what I said I was going to do, especially with how big it grew. So
I'm gonna pause for you. I want you to, for the audience, I want you to set the stage.
I'm going to right now.
Yeah. Set that. I was like, don't, I guess, because of like,
Yeah.
specific with the wingsuit, how many people
Yep.
are watching, because I know this was like immense pressure on you.
So basically, what happens is I agree to do this. The project is jumping from a helicopter in a wingsuit from a distance and then flying through a very narrow cliff. So the cliff was basically 3 massive, like almost fingers that were quite long, and one was really wide and one was very narrow. And the goal was to fly through the very narrow one. No one had ever done anything quite like it. It was at the time very unique. And it was going to be a live, massive mega stunt aired to all of China. So it was going to be on Hunan TV. And then they actually, because of our first event was so big, they embedded news crews. So both ABC, NBC, Reuters, and I forget who else, but there was like literally satellite trucks from each of the different news organizations. And they had people there following us the entire time, basically giving updates always, right? So I was just talking to reporters all day, and there was just hundreds of just reporters, and it was crazy. So there was a lot of pressure on that. We showed up for the beginning. I had, like I said, 5 days of training. And on the first day, everything looked like it was going to be okay because the first day the weather was pretty good. And, we didn't end up doing jumps that day because we didn't feel like we needed to. We just went and looked at like scouted landing areas and looked at things. And it was funny because when I looked at the landing area, we realized that, okay, if I can't make it to the landing area, if I come out and I'm too low or I get a line twist or an off-heading opening, I thought worst case scenario, I'd have to land in the trees. So we went over and we looked at the trees to see like which tree would I land in if I had to. But as it turned out, the trees were not the kinds of trees you want to land in. They looked green and they looked soft, but as you got closer, you realized that the green was actually covering dead branches inside. So if you hit one of these trees, there was a good chance the branches would skewer you and you'd probably bleed to death before you were able to get out of there.
Wow.
So the trees all of a sudden became not a real option. And I'm like, oh no. So it changed it for me.
Yeah.
Because now all of a sudden I'm like, well, if I get an off-heading opening or line twist, I'm in real serious trouble because my landing area was actually over to the right, up on a hill, like 70 feet off the ground, carved into like a rock wall with a massive concrete barrier around it. And it was only about a meter wide. And it was a staircase with just stairs. So stairs are a great way to break your legs. And it was at the mouth of an opening where wind would come in like rotors. So it basically collapsed your canopy so you could really get injured. And I'm like, oh man, this actually is a lot gnarlier than I thought it was going to be. Okay. And then that evening we get news that a hurricane, a typhoon is coming. And when we see that, we're like, uh-oh, you know, and sure enough, the typhoon hits, I think it was Hong Kong. And as it hits Hong Kong, it sends ripples of weather at us. So we're not getting a full brunt of a hurricane.
We were a little bit of inland, like we were quite close to Shanghai, so the coastline got the worst, but we still got horrible.
As I understand from you guys, it's any little bit of change in the weather like that with the wind,
it can be bad.
havoc.
Like we couldn't handle wind over 10 miles an hour. Anything over 10 miles an hour would channel between the cliffs, creating rotors and actually accelerate in speed over 20, 30 miles an hour. It was impossible to land. So any kind of wind was unacceptable, but it was rain and wind. And so I got no practice, zero, nothing. So they basically day 1 practice, no. Day 2 practice, no. Day 3 practice, no. Day 4 practice, no. Day 5. And I'm like, oh.
Okay, wait. So as each progression of a day, and I know you're both together, what's going through your fucking head? Are you just starting to incrementally go, fuck,
I'm fucked.
Fuck. Right.
No.
Is it just crushing you? The fear, is there just,
dude,
like
okay,
mentally?
Let me just. I mean, it's not about. It's impossible. Like all of a sudden, this can't be done. Like this isn't doable. I'm not getting the training I need. The weather conditions are not proper. This can't be done. And the pressure on me was more self-induced because obviously there's nothing I can do about weather. But I really do. Take my word very seriously, and I really do want to accomplish, especially when you have like sponsors and television and satellite trucks, and these people are trying to put something together for people to see and entertain like a large group of humans. And I was getting very upset because it was looking more and more like I wasn't going to be able to accomplish this. And on day 5, the weather cleared up just enough for me to do 2 practice jumps. And the issue is as I jumped, it was still kind of rainy and dark and not very good, but the winds had died down enough. And I did 1 jump where I flew high, and it was basically a worthless jump because I didn't get close enough for it to actually help me. Right. And then on the second jump, I got a little bit closer, but really all the second jump showed me was just how fucked I was because I genuinely didn't know where I could get out of the chopper. I didn't know how close I could get. I didn't know where I could enter it. I didn't know where I could get out. I didn't know. It gave me just enough information to let me know that the next day, if this thing goes, I'm pretty fucked. And I'm like, oh no, I needed those 5 days of training. Like I really needed them bad, and I didn't get them. So that evening I had a real problem sleeping because I'm like, if the weather's good, I am in real trouble. And it's kind of important to know that I had just been seriously injured. I had a really bad accident in Africa the year before where I had destroyed my legs, blown out my ACL. I had to go through an ACL reconstruction. I had to like learn to walk again. It was like a very brutal injury. And I wasn't, and I'm still to this day not fully recovered, but I was as recovered as I could be at that time. And I had to jump with knee braces on and a lot of body armor just to be able to land even under good conditions, right? So I'm kind of realizing that if I do this, there's a real good chance that if I don't die, which is pretty high, but even if I make it, that I'm going to get really badly injured and be put back in the hospital. So the fear was, fear is not the right word. It's almost too small a word. It was absolutely terrifying. And what happens is the next morning we wake up and it was the worst day of weather we had. It was awful. You couldn't even see the mountain. It was literally, the clouds were all the way covering it up. The winds were like 20 miles an hour. It was just not happening. So I had almost a little feeling of relief because I'm like,
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
well, I mean, it's out of my hands.
Right,
I mean, that
right.
no one can blame me for
You.
this. But even then, I was still not feeling good. It was going to be the first big project that we'd said we could do that looked like it wasn't going to happen. So I talked to Frank, who was our partner, who like deals with the Chinese media and governments and like the approval process and stuff. And I'm saying, okay, today looks bad. We're gonna have to postpone this till tomorrow. And Frank's like, well, Jeb, the budgets, we've gone way over budget. The amount of people, and we have over like, I think it was like 90 rescue team there.
It was huge.
Huge.
That was a pro team.
Massive rescue team in case I ended up in the forest and needed to be getting out of there, because we all knew that if I landed in a tree, I was probably going to be bleeding and it was going to be a serious thing. So all of a sudden they had a bunch of police, because over 50,000 people from the surrounding area showed up, and they weren't expecting that number. So they had to bring in extra police officers to control crowds. And it got really out of hand really fast. And the press came in just droves. So it became this just monster project. And he's like, well, today's the day, or it's not happening at all. And that created
on the shitty day.
On the shitty day. And we had a cutoff number. Like there was, I think it was 3:00 was when the military was shutting down the airspace. So at 3:00, we could not take off. Like the helicopter, that was it. The project was done. Everyone's going home. It's over at 3:00. That was like a hard deck. Like we couldn't get past that number. So I think it was like around, I don't know.
It was 20 minutes before.
Well, no, but we went up first though. I basically, it was like maybe a half hour before. I'm kind of like, you know what? Let's just fly up, take a look and just at least show that we're trying, right? We have to just show that we're attempting. And I go to the pilot and I'm like, hey, we're going to go up and just take a look. And the pilot's like, we don't have ceiling. We can't get above. We can't get to the altitude. And I'm like, I know that. I just want to do this. And he just wouldn't do it. So I went and got Frank and I'm like, we need to talk to this guy. So Frank kind of explains to him that, we know that it's not going to work, but we still need to go up and just show that we're trying. So we get in the chopper, we go up, and sure enough, I mean, we can't even get to, we're in cloud, and he just the pilot looks at me and goes, I told you.
Oh, the chopper can't even.
Yeah, we can't. Well, we can't get. The problem is, once you get up, you're in the cloud. You can't see. There's no visual.
Oh, you're fucked. Oh,
yeah, you can't see anything. You're literally in a cloud. So he's just like, I told you, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. So we come back, we land, and we're pretty much like, I think this is like 20 minutes before our cutoff time. Okay, like it's like right at the end. Like it's literally. The show's over in 20 minutes. Like they're shutting everything down.
People are already leaving.
Yeah, people are already starting to leave. No, they're already starting to take cabling down and turning cameras off, and they're packing stuff up.
Wow.
And I go back, and there's like this little tent, and I go back into the little tent, and I start taking my gear off. And as I'm taking my gear off, Frank walks in. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm taking my gear off." He's like, "Whoa, we still have 20 minutes. Just leave your stuff on. We have a little more time. Just relax." And I'm like, whatever, dude. I took my shit off. I'm like, I don't care. So I took my stuff off. And I would say 5 minutes after I took all my shit off, my buddy James, his wife walks in. And she's like, hey, Jeb, you need to come out here and take a look at this. And I'm like, I don't need to look at shit. She's like, no. Come outside and take a look at this. And I'm just like, fuck it. I walk out and it's cleared up. The clouds are gone. You can see the mountain completely. And I'm like, oh, shit. And then I'm like, oh, but the winds are probably still crappy. So I had a guy who was in my landing area. His name was Barry. And I'm like, hey, Barry, what are the winds? And he's like, 0. There's no wind. And I'm like, what? I'm like, how long has it been no wind? He's like, literally about 1 minute. And I'm like, are you fucking serious? And everyone's just staring at me. And my mom's staring at me, and Iiro's staring at me, and all the press are staring at me. And I'm just like, and they're just like, are you gonna go?
Oh,
and I'm just sitting there like,
jeez.
Oh shit, and I'm like, okay, let's go. And as I say that, my mom starts to cry. She just bursts out crying, and I'm just like, Mom, I'm really sorry, but you just can't do that right now. It's really,
the pressure
really
from that must be
not helpful. Like this is serious. This is what I'm here to do, and I'm doing it. And you need to stop that right now, because it's not helpful. So she just kind of turns around and walks away. I go back in, get my shit on as fast as I can. James gets his stuff. We basically run over to the helicopter. As I'm running there, I think it was the ABC reporter, and she basically stops me on my way. I'm like, I don't have time to talk to this person, but I'm like, okay. And she's like, just give me 1 second, turn the camera off. And she's like, you know, you don't have to do this, right? It was fascinating. She just, because she's been there the whole week. And she's like, she could tell. She's like, you do not have to do this. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And she's like, all right, turn the camera back on. And she did like a really quick interview. I run over, I jump on the chopper, and literally the chopper's skids leave the ground like 1 minute. Like it literally 2:59 is when the chopper leaves the freaking ground. Like it was so close to the cutoff time that you can't even script it. Like that's how crazy close it was.
That is awesome.
So I'm in the chopper and we're going to altitude. And in my mind, I'm like, this isn't happening. There's no question, you know, Barry's going to call up because there was a cutoff. So if the winds picked up again, he was going to call up and say stop. And that was going to let us know, okay, we can't go. We're going to go land. And I'm like, he's going to say stop anytime, any second. We get to altitude. And all of a sudden we start like a run up. So there's like a run up where we have a scheduled, like we're using GPS coordinates to like organize where I'm getting out of the helicopter. And James is the one who's got the GPS and he's marking everything. And we've set it up so that we do one dry run. And then after the one dry run, we then do the actual run. And we're in the process of doing the dry run. And all of a sudden I realize, oh shit, this is happening. Like I'm doing this. And the feeling was so horrible. Like I can't even, it was upsetting. And all of a sudden I realized I'm not going to do this. I'm not ready. If I jump right now, I'm going to die. Like I am not prepared for this. I know exactly what I'm facing. I haven't gotten the proper training. And I'm like, everyone's just going to have to understand. I didn't get the proper training. I cannot do this. And all of a sudden, you know, I'm wearing a full face helmet, goggles. You can't see my face. They're filming. There's cameras all over me. But I'm just like, you cannot see that I start to cry. I literally start crying because I realize that I'm going to land in this helicopter and I'm done jumping forever. I'm never going to do another skydive. I'm never going to do another base jump. I don't ever want to do this again. I realized at that moment that I'd been spending since I was 16 years old training and preparing to get to this place, and that the fear was so extreme that it finally broke me. I was finally broken. Like in my actual fucking core, it literally cracked me to my very center.
Fuck, so you were basically saying, you weren't jumping. You were telling yourself,
fuck,
I'm done.
I'm not just jumping now.
You're done that's it.
I'm done. Period. Forever. I'm fucking my entire life is done. I'm done. And I literally was just crying, and I'm realizing that I've completely ended it all. It's finished. And this really strange thing, like thought, kind of entered my mind. And I'm like, you know, okay, I land in the helicopter right now. And I probably don't die today. I'll survive. I'll live through this. But one day, maybe tomorrow, maybe a year from now, maybe 10 years, who knows? At one day I will be dying. I'll be on my deathbed and I'll be looking back on my life. And I will look at this moment as the moment that I finally allowed fear to dictate who I'm going to be. And something strange happened. And I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to die anyway, today's as good a day to die as any other. Fuck it. Let's roll. And this weird switch just went off in my head. And I'm like, I just accepted the fact that I was going to die and that it was totally okay. And that if I was going to die, this is exactly how I wanted to do it. And I literally just decided we're going. And it just so happened that decision coincided with the run-up. And all of a sudden, James taps me on my shoulder. And I just step out of the helicopter and I get into position. And I'm looking down and I'm like, oh shit, I'm really far away. And then all of a sudden, James taps me a second time, which is the signal to jump. And as he taps me a second time, I'm like, oh, fuck, I am too far away. Like, he is making me get out of this helicopter in literal death. Like, I can't make it. But I'm like, fuck it. Let's go. And I step out of the helicopter. And as I step out of the chopper, I'm just like, oh, I'm fucking never going to make it. It is way too far away.
Wait, so we're saying when your feet left, have you left?
I'm off the chopper. I'm flying, and I'm too far away. I'm not going to fucking make it. And I'm flying. I'm like, oh, shit, I'm too far. And then as I start like catching air and I start really moving, I'm like, no, wait. I think I can make it. And then I'm flying, and I'm like, no, fuck this. I can fly over it. Like, I don't even have to go through it. Like, I can just go over like to skim the top of this. And I'm like, you didn't come here to skim the top. Dude, just enter it at the beginning. You'll come out wherever you come out, and we'll figure it out on the way. And I just enter this thing at the very beginning. And all of a sudden, as I enter, the world shrinks. The walls converge on me. And all of a sudden, I'm so close to rock, and I have rock enveloping me on all sides. And I'm hauling freaking ass, and I can just see. And I hadn't been this close to rock since I had impacted the year before. So the visual was, oh shit, I'm impacting. And I kind of come out, and as I come out, there was like this ridge line, and I realized, oh shit, I need to dump speed before deploying because I'm going too fast. And as I'm coming in, I'm like, well, shit, I can't dump speed because I won't make my landing area. So I literally deploy my parachute in full flight.
How fast are we talking?
Fast enough that his GoPro flew off his helmet.
It literally ripped all the cameras off my body. So the impact was so hard that it just literally, it was instant canopy. My legs go out in front of me. All my cameras get ripped off my body. And I'm just like, it almost knocks me unconscious. It slams me so hard. I reach up, I grab toggles, and I instantly just pull, and I can see I'm not going to make my landing area. It's too far away. And I'm like, oh shit. And I have my hands up, and the staircase was actually quite long. And at the very, very bottom of it is where like I could land. You know, and I'm like, I might make it. It didn't look like I was going to. So I kept coming forward. And as I get to the concrete railing, I lift my legs up and just clear them as I impact, and I hit the side of the railing, which break all the ribs in my back. But I didn't give two shits.
You were like, fuck, I'll take the rib breaks.
I was just like, and they were mild. It was no big, it was maybe more of a bruising. But in any event, it was like, and I'm laying there just like shaking, and all of a sudden Iiro's running me, and everyone's like screaming, because this is literally just like 10 minutes before this was over. This was not happening. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be done. We had failed. Like, it was a failure.
I remember we were sitting the whole day. Like, I mean, we had all this like the typhoon coming. And then that day we knew the forecast was bad. We knew in the morning it's not going to happen that day. And remember, there was a moment like after we sat there for maybe 3-4 hours, and we were telling each other, imagine if this actually works out. Imagine how lucky we are if the clouds would not, and we would actually do it. And we were laughing because we knew it would not happen any time. But it did happen. But remember when we were sitting there and wondering, like, there's no way this happened, but what miracle it would be if those clouds would move. And look and behold, that happened.
Well, at that stage, though, I got to be honest, you know, we were having this conversation, and I was genuinely hoping that wasn't going to happen, because I knew I wasn't ready. I knew I didn't get the training. I knew the chances. The jump had so many cruxes of places where things could go wrong and kill me that I just was like, dude, the chances of me getting away with this without getting hurt are, I was certain that I was going to get killed. And I left the helicopter feeling like I was going to die. And it was a very upsetting experience. And even though I was successful, and even though we landed and we had a huge party and everyone was excited, and like, you know, the press went crazy and my mom was super, you know, and it was a beautiful thing. But it took me 6 months to recover from it. It literally
mentally, right?
It affected me in a way psychologically that is really hard to explain, and it's hard for me to even really like understand, because it affected my memory. It affected the way I thought. It affected the way, and it changed me as a person. And I've had a lot of things happen to me that have changed me as a person. Like and this was one of those experiences where, you know, it sounds overly dramatic. Oh, you left the helicopter thinking you were going to die. No. you do not understand.
Dude.
I know exactly what I'm capable of. I know what I can do. This was beyond my capabilities. I didn't get the proper training. I knew what I needed to do this. I didn't get any of it.
Right.
And I literally did this blind, not knowing anything about anything that I was doing on a flight that I had no training or any experience in. I've never side slipped inside of a mountain before. And for me, and it's funny because, like, you know, base jumpers, when they see the footage, right, they don't understand, right? So they're like, oh, it's not big a deal. Every base jumper who was there on site, they all got it.
Yeah.
Every one of them. And to give you an idea, I had 12 of the best jumpers in the world there. None of them were willing to land where I was trying to land. And I'm talking about opening at altitude. The only guy with me who was willing to land there was Jeff. No, it was Jeff.
So that's you even saying about just landing.
Just landing.
Right.
Now that's pulling high and landing. As far as flying
through the thing.
Wait, I asked any of them, who wants this? And they're all, that's all you, bro. No one wanted anything to do with it.
No one raised their hand. I remember that
We had to
moment.
find them all because they were going to do like some practice jumps. We had to find them a new landing area because none of them would fucking land there.
I remember when you got those two jumps and like how much more afraid you were after those jumps because they were so like, then you realize like how really scary it would be. And
Wait,
how
this
much
is just amazing because you guys are usually talking about risk assessment and you saying about what your capabilities are, and you know that, and you weigh the risks of like, hey, can I do this or can I not? And the fact that you were telling yourself, and you guys both knew, like, oh, bro, this is this is not.
Listen
what I
to
want
me
to
very carefully. On the very first jump, I almost shattered my legs completely. And the only reason I didn't lose my legs on the first jump was because Barry did something I told him not to do. So what we did is, in order for me to land on the staircase, they put wood so that it would at least be smooth. So I wasn't hitting jagged, like, concrete edges. And there was this concrete bench kind of in the middle of the landing area. And he's like, hey, Jeb, maybe I should put some wood here just in case you hit this. And I'm like, dude, this staircase is so long, I'm not coming anywhere near that bench. First jump, he decided to take some extra wood and put it against the bench.
And it's a thick wood like planks like
Thick.
this. Yeah.
And he puts it there, and I guess I hit literally the bench. Like, I'm coming in for landing, the winds are shifting and changing, I get rotored, and I literally impact this thing at full speed.
How did you not get injured?
Because when I hit the board broke and took the energy of the impact. If that board hadn't been there, my legs would have been shattered.
And you just came back from an injury.
And that was me opening high and having plenty of altitude to set up for a landing. And I realized, oh my God, and that was with almost no wind. And I'm getting rotored with no wind. And I'm like, oh shit. So the two practice jumps made me realize how completely motherfucked I was. And I'm like, this is absolute. And the problem with me is this concept that if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And it's a pressure that I put on myself. I mean, Iiro told me, Jeb, you don't fucking want to do this, don't do it. Frank said, Jeb, this doesn't look good, don't do it.
But we didn't really mean it.
Red Bull, our sponsor, they literally said, hey, Jeb, you don't have to do this. We've already gotten the publicity we need. You don't have to jump. So please, if you think this is too dangerous, please don't do it. Everyone was saying that. And even the reporter was saying you don't need to do this. So everyone who was there on site were watching what was happening, and they all knew. Iiro, during an interview, because we made documentaries about this, in an interview, he's just sitting there looking like, I hope he makes it, like, because we knew how bad it was, and it was to talk about pressure, and this is another thing that's interesting too. You know, base jumping is scary and gnarly, it just is. But when you're out there with your buddies in the wilderness and you show up at a site and the weather isn't good, you just turn around and walk back down. It's no big deal. The difference when you're doing a live show is you need to know in 6 months from now, on Friday at 3:00 in the afternoon, you're going, right? And you have no idea what the weather's going to be. You have no idea if the conditions are going to be safe. Yeah, and also there's going to be, 100 cameras rolling live and sending satellite signals to the freaking planet. You know, and it's the pressure is something I cannot describe to you. And every time we've done one of these live shows, I swear I'm never doing one again.
True.
Every time I was like, that's it. I'm never doing this again. fuck this shit. It's just not acceptable. They've all gone this exact same way, every fucking one. And that's why actually Red Bull, they started saying, expect the unexpected. We're always on the billboards because it always some wild ass shit that is literally on the edge of death happens. And so needless to say, I've gotten used to this experience of performing during very high stress situations. And I have to say that that's one thing from all my life, jumping, training, shark diving, snakes, dealing with like just straight horror has prepared me to operate in that environment. And what I've noticed is that when I'm in that place, right, when I'm in that spot where the fear is literally crushing me and breaking me and like cracking my internal core, that is when I operate at my best. It's so strange, but I have this little switch inside my mind that when I finally flick it, when I finally decide, all right, I'm ready to die. And that's really what I do. And some people think this is very negative, but this is a psychological approach at dealing with genuine terror of things that can absolutely murder you. And I've always thought I was unique in this because I'd never heard any other base jumpers talk about it. I'd never heard people talk about just accepting death and just going, right? Maybe sometimes you hear like soldiers say that shit, but I never heard normal people say it until eventually I started studying Samurai Warrior. And all of a sudden I learned that there were entire cultures who'd use this method. And what a samurai warrior would do is as they were going into battle, they would accept their own death. And they would go into battle knowing they were going to die. And what that would do, it would allow them to shed their fear of it. And then they could then operate at the level necessary to ensure they don't die. And that's kind of what my approach has been from the beginning. I approach something, and we're only talking about the really dangerous ones. Obviously, there are base jumps where it's not like this. Most base jumps are chill and fun and whatever. But I'm talking about the super gnarly, super high risk, you fuck up, you die. Those ones, my approach is I go into it expecting death, and then I just flick a switch. And for some reason, a bizarre calm comes over me. And as this calm comes over me, I become very focused and very prepared, and I operate at my optimum level in that situation.
You know what's so cool about the way you just described that is it's almost like since you've accepted the fact that you could die that day, or you're going to die at some point, or it's going to happen at some point, and today's a good enough day, is the fact that then that bullshit's out of the way.
Yeah.
And then you just turn that shit on and you're like, motherfucker, let's roll.
And you're
going to do your thing. You're going to do
what you need to do to not die.
You don't have to think about that death side of it. You're like, I'm just going to think about rocking and crushing it. And if it happens, it happens.
It's a fascinating thing about fear is your fear usually comes from the decision to do something. So it's like the transition from being on the cliff to off the cliff.
Yeah.
When you can make the choice not to do it, that's where the fear is. That's what's trying to convince you. But what's interesting is once you take that step, once you go past the point of no return, the fear just goes away. And now you're just dealing with the situation. In the act of doing, there is no fear. There's only fear in the act of thinking about doing. It's an incredibly strange thing. Now, I will say this. I've had some wingsuit flights where I'm proximity flying and everything's all hunky-dory, and then scary shit happens. Like then you'll have something scary occur, and then you'll get that feeling again. But
But that's reactive fear, because I mean, before each jump, like you have this hesitation. That's your survival instincts. That's your lizard brain that's talking you out of it. Then that's also good because it sharpens your senses. So it makes you sure that like you are ready for what you're doing. It makes you question, like, have you packed a parachute? It's good to question it, but then you have to leave it away because you don't want to have any gear fear in that moment. For me, it's always the moment that Jeb described. It's always the moment, like before I jump, like I always said that the whole world like shrinks between the inhale and the exhale. Like just when you're at the exit, but when you take this inhale, like then it's fuck it, I'm going to go and nothing's going to stop me doing it. But then you say, then there's a reactive type of fear when something happens and, oh my shit, I nearly died, and you continue forward.
Like you get a 180.
Yeah.
You're going to hit the cliff. You impact, tears your foot off. there's fear again. Yeah. So the thing is that, like, when the base jump goes well, the fear is not there.
Right.
But when the base jump goes bad and things start going, then fear comes back because now you're having to deal with stuff again. And that's the thing, is when you have to deal with a bad situation, the fear returns. But usually it's a fear that you can, it's like a workable fear. It's not like a crippling fear. Again,
and you on steroids because you get all your body producing all this dopamine, not dopamine, but adrenaline that
it
gives
is
you
dopamine.
like in that sense.
It's
You're
adrenaline,
basically
dopamine, it's everything. Your body
The whole
releases
mix.
everything. It gives you everything you need to survive.
Yeah.
Because that's what all that is. It's your fight or flight, and you're basically in the situation where the lion's going to rip your head off. And now you need to do whatever you can to keep that lion from ripping your head off. So it gives you everything it has to try to survive.
Yeah.
And then it's an incredibly powerful feeling. But anyways, that's basically.
Look, what you've described, both of you, I mean, it's like you're basically operating at the highest level of, shall we say, stage fright or performance. I mean, like that's like the
pressure. I
right.
think
That is like a fucking amazing example. I think other people will be able to, listen and watch this and go, okay, I think I can get up in front of a couple hundred people and give a speech.
Well, exactly.
Well, it's funny
At
because
least you're not going to die.
I've done quite a bit of public speaking. I do motivational speaking, and I get in front of huge crowds. And and it's funny because I don't have any stage fright whatsoever when it comes to that, because I've experienced like almost dying.
Let me remind, I have a funny story here to the end about our public speaking event. We were in London and we were at the Wembley Arena. We were speaking at We Day event where there's lots of like 15,000 kids who've earned the right to be there. They've done something for the planet. So there's 15,000 kids who are smarter than us combined.
Well, and the other people speaking were like Malala, Al Gore, Prince Harry,
So we go there, we speak, give a like speech about survival and how everything went really well and like how we optimize our senses. Kind of as things we were talking about, like on shorter version, what we talk here, like how we are survival specialists. And then we leave the stadium and then we cross the street and Jeb gets run over by a black cab in London. So that was just the irony of the situation. The world's greatest survivor, and then
he gets killed by a black cab.
But that is a tragedy in life. Like we'll never take the destiny can fuck us over in many different ways. But anyhow, sorry to remind you of this.
And when he says run over, he's not joking.
Right.
It wasn't like I got hit by a black cab. No, I got run over. It literally rolled over my leg. And I'm like, I watched the wheel go over my foot. I'm like, oh, that foot's gone. It's a fascinating experience.
Oh, God. Well, look, on that note, look, we've covered such an amazing topic. So, look, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening and watching. And we just want to remind everyone, please subscribe to the 3777 channel and also go to 3777.com to check out our exclusive merchandise. We appreciate everybody and have a good one. We'll catch you on the other side.
And the merchandise, it's these shirts. These are the Dragons by Pepe.
We got a special
Get
Dragon
yours.
shirts.
That's right. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.